Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach and channel. In this video we're going to look at the pre-season challenge week 2 team lists. The first week, I suppose, of most of the teams, putting a team list out there so we can have a bit more of a look at some possible SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy implications. But we'll kick off by looking at the All-Stars team list, just because these players won't be featuring in their club teams this weekend. And I guess maybe some of the interesting points as we look at we'll go Indigenous All-Stars first on the left. I think the interesting one, Jaden Campbell named at 6. Was expecting him to be playing in the 7, given that sounds like that's his new role at the Titans potentially. But I think Puru might have featured a bit in the Sharks game last week from memory. I think the brothers potentially are both, from there, and I think he might be a genuine 7. So that might be why they've gone that way. Connor Watson at 9. It'll be good to see how he goes there at dummy half. Not quite sure who they've got to spell him. Maybe Jaden Sullivan, I suppose, coming off the bench. But I guess, a couple of interesting reserves there as well. Particularly the 2 young guys from the Roosters, Roberts and Steep, I'm keen to have a look at. For the Maori side, Kalen Ponga at fullback's pretty handy. C&K moving into 6. I think that's just because you've got Kalen Ponga available at fullback. But they'll probably operate one each side of the ruck, you'd almost imagine. In the forwards, Royce Hunt's starting, so it'll be interesting to see how much game time he gets this week. And, I guess an opportunity to see him start a game. He usually does come off the bench, but could be massive for SuperCoach if he goes all right there. On the bench, you've got Kinney, obviously another sort of fullback option. They've got a few fullbacks here. And Jesse McLean, so he'll be an interesting one to have a look at. So I guess the talk from Ivan Cleary was that he was probably slightly better than Casey in the trial game. So, that's fantastic. And I guess as well, Laban, another one that a lot of us are looking at after getting named for the Warriors last week. We'll keep an eye out for him. But I guess most of it we're looking at is this preseason challenge. So it looks like we've got a few familiar faces lining up this week. So the Raiders and the Sharks hasn't shown up. I think I was too quick on the go button. There we go. So looking at the Raiders and Sharks, looking pretty full strength. Obviously, this is their last trial before going to Vegas. So for the Raiders, you can see Tamale has been talked up on the wing in place of Hopewadi, so they're giving him a run with the starting team. Interesting, Matty Nicholson named in the 12, so off the back of his performance in the trial, getting a run. Trey Mooney, I guess, is another interesting one, named to start at prop. So I think he's fairly cheap as well, so definitely one to keep an eye on the minutes there. And then the bench, so I guess like a lot of their backs on the starting bench, so we're not taking too much notice of that. But some other ones to keep an eye on, probably Miles Martin. There's a bit of hype about him. I think all the Martins got a bit of a pump up, I saw in one article. All sort of young forwards. But obviously, they'll put Chevy in the fullback spot for a bit. Ethan Sanders, they'll probably give a bit of time at 7, that sort of thing. And for the Sharks, pretty much stock standard back 5 with the exception of Stone Street in for Katoa. Don't know if he's on the bench, doesn't look like it. I'm pretty sure he played last week, so that's not an issue. Oregon Kafusi named in the front row, which was probably to be expected. So they've pretty much named their starting 17 in the 1 to 17, which is handy. And then, their extended squad will get a run at some point as well, you'd imagine. The Knights and Eels. So I guess with the rest of these teams, there will be some that maybe don't run their strong side straight away. So with the Knights, Will Price deputising at fullback, Fletcher Sharp in the 6 and Cogger in the 7. So you'd imagine they're trying to get as many reps in with that pair as they can. Marzu and Schiller on the wings, probably expected to be their starting wingers. In the forwards, probably their backup set of forwards. Brodie Jones, more of an edge player normally, named in the 8. Well, they've got no Leo Thompson for one. Trying to think who else would be in their starting. Saifidi maybe, might be injured. But Hetherington gets a start. Frizzell named in 13. Jumper is interesting. Obviously not on the edge. But I guess maybe it'll be Dylan Lucas and Kai Pearce-Paul to start the season there. Then the bench, Gamble and Hastings named, so probably not going to be that bench in round 1. And a couple of cheapies there, Hopwood and Thompson to keep an eye on. Also Matt Arthur, possibly is the next in line after Brayley for that 9 jersey. And for Parramatta, so Iongi at fullback, Dylan Brown and Volkman in the halves. So Mitch Moses not getting a run this week. Probably their second string 3-quarter line as well. Brendan Hand starting, so Lussick will be on the bench and definitely get some game time. Tuolangi named on the edge, very interesting for those that are looking at him for SuperCoach. Charlie Guymer's another cheapie named at 13. I don't think Hopgood will be in the squad, doesn't look like it, so probably don't read too much into that, but might find himself on the bench if they've got him as a middle. Junior Paulo missing as well, so I think it's a shootout between Joe O and Greg for that second starting front row spot. Cowboys Dolphins, so just having a look briefly, very second string for both sides, which probably doesn't bode well for the cheapie Robert Derby, Jackson Paulo as well. So I think you can, slide them down the pecking order a bit in terms of the 3-quarter line spots there. So in the forwards, McKaylee and Hess, Kai O'Donnell named on an edge. So I guess, probably these guys are all going to be bench starters or bench players at best, just based on the squad that they've sent out there. And same with the Dolphins. So Kurt Donahue, normally named at hooker for SuperCoach and Fantasy, but finds himself at fullback. Max Fearday and Junior Tupou coming in. Jake Averillo at 6. I did hear a bit of a whisper, someone saying that could be a move this season with their sort of lack of halves options, but I'm pretty sure Nikorima is playing in the All-Stars, so he'll get a crack, but I think he'll slot back into the centres, and then he might be the backup to Nikorima. Like the likes of Harrison Graham, Mason Teague, we've seen a bit of before, but clearly not in the starting 17. Warriors and Storm, so I think they're looking again just through a very second string sort of sides. Although with the Warriors, because they don't have a trial next week, so they've gone fairly full strength. To a picky at fullback, obviously CNK out, but a lot of people calling for him to start the season there, and CNK could possibly find himself in the centres. Leia Tower gets another crack. The halves combo, so it looks like they're working on that. So again, we think we can pretty well bank Metcalf. Jackson Ford back, named in the front row. Probably a great sign for Laban. Vay Malga named on the edge to start, so could suggest he's the next one up. Might start on the bench as an edge, replacement, which isn't ideal for SuperCoach, but potentially one injury away from a starting spot. Aaron Clark named in the 13 again, so I think that's the way they're going there. And the Storm, it looks very much like their second string side. Failunga at the back. Mitchell Jennings, I thought it was Michael Jennings. I was like, geez, I thought he retired. Tyron Wishart getting a run at 6. Russell Smith, their backup halfback. Stefano getting a run to start, which is interesting. Might just want to get some minutes in his legs. Yeah, other than that, a lot of their sort of extended. Morgan Harper, didn't realise he was at the Storm now, but definitely part of their extended squad. Rabbitohs and Seagulls, so just at a quick glance, yeah, probably some understrength teams here too. Fletcher Myers, Isaiah Tass named in the centres, which is interesting. There's potentially a free wing spot, but if he's in this team, he might not be in the running for it. Might be Myers, I don't know. They might be swinging around through the game. Humphreys and Dodd in the halves could be a little bit of a shootout for the 7, but you imagine Dodd would have the advantage. And then the front row looks pretty close to starting, although no Tavita Totola, I suppose. So it could be between Kepi and Malali for the other front row spot. Mamazelis getting a run at 9. And then, so Havili in the reserve, so Mamazelis will get a spell, no doubt. And then for Seagulls, so Hopewadi at fullback, it's always good to see. Backup halves with Madison and Arthur. So Jake Simpkin. So again, probably this is looking like their bench forward options. So Takao probably coming off the bench. Waddell and Cheekham on the edge, Nabali, and then Chan Kum Tong on the bench. So, you'd imagine Croker would be the front runner there at 9, and then Simpkin off the bench and Chan Kum Tong. Well, I think Croker's injured, so maybe they will be testing Simpkin to see if he can start in the position. Broncos Titans, so just again have a bit of a look through, maybe slightly fuller strength from the Titans, but the Broncos looking very sort of second string with Parham at fullback, Billy Walters and Madden in the halves. Dean Mariner, interestingly, on the wing, so I think he's swapping with Cobbo. That's what we can take from that. Gajeski and Piakura might be a shootout there for the edge spot alongside Ricky. Kobe Hetherington in the 13, be interesting to see how he goes. And then their bench options, all the young guys, particularly the likes of Sigwalt. Apparently he's a young fullback. Kobe Black, young halfback, will be interesting to see. And for the Titans, so Jojo Fafita and Sammy named in the centres. So I thought Fafita would be on the wing. Might still be with Brian Kelly in the Indigenous All-Stars team. I think Lofi Khan Pereira is as well. And Keanu Kinney. So I think this could be close to a full-strength side. Obviously without their Indigenous All-Stars or Maori All-Stars. Because you've got Brimson and Foran in the halves. So like I said, I think Jaden Campbell will slot in the 7 is the plan. And then Fodawaker, Jolliffe, Randall at 13. Obviously, Big Tino's got to find a way in there somewhere. So that side does look pretty full strength, but they do have a few out this week. So interesting stuff there from the Titans. Bulldogs and Tigers. So just have a look at the Bulldogs squad. It looks, like their second stringers, which unfortunately for my man Blake Wilson means that he's maybe not necessarily in the running for the starting wing spot there. So Joseph O'Neill's a young halfback, one to keep an eye on. Interestingly, Sam Hughes named at 10, so has he sort of slid down the pole in terms of the rotation. Tom and Monet on the bench, so I guess, they've still got, they've got Tupa, Newer, obviously Max King to come in. Does someone like a Monet miss out altogether? Or do they back him to come off the bench more than as a starting option? Be interesting to see there. And then, the rest of their squad on the bench, basically. And a bit the same for the Tigers, although Lockie Galvin's starting. imagine he'd be a pretty close to first string, or he would be a first string option. Skelton on the wing, be good to see him get a run. But yeah, no sign of Terrell May or obviously Jerome Luai. So looks very second string team there. So can maybe cross out some of those names. Obviously Lachlan Galvin, I think, is in, but after that we'll wait for next week. For the Dragons, looking pretty full strength just from the back line. So I think they're testing out all their new combos with Gutherson, Val Holmes, Flanagan and Ilias in the halves. Damien Cook to start, with Little coming off the bench. Couchman, so I think there's been a bit of hype about him being a starting front rower. So it looks like that is the case. With Gula, who's just come across from the Raiders. And for the Roosters, so no James Tedesco, but young Nwanga Watasi and Toya starting in the centres. Is that a sign of things to come? Smith and Townsend in the halves, so that looks like the combination they're working with. Nafahu White named to start at prop alongside Lenu. Doesn't look like we've got Lindsay Collins, so I'm still leaning towards Lenu coming off the bench to start. Butcher and Radley on the edges, but no Angus Crichton. So Siwa Wong at 13 is very interesting, but I imagine he will be on the bench come round 1. But if they're going to play him in the middle, it might mean a little bit of SuperCoach production potentially. And that's it. It was on 8 games. That seemed really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. So Panthers not having a game this weekend, but we seem to get through every other team. And I guess I sort of went through it quite quickly, so I haven't really made too much notes regarding the team, so I don't think it's actually changed since my last video. Yeah, just looking at that, I don't think so. So there could be some little changes around the fringes perhaps, but I'm pretty comfortable with that for the time being. So yeah, I guess we can go back through it and have a bit of a closer look. I think, yeah, Matty Nicholson maybe was one that targeted earlier. Yeah, there's quite a few teams that are playing their second string team, so not too much to take note of there. I don't think there's anyone I've really got to fade potentially, but we'll go from there. So yeah, Hetherington's an interesting one there at the Bronx, yep. But I'll leave it there with the Dogs. So we'll wrap the video up there. As always, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you're enjoying the NRL content. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel, and other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.